God. I'm Max, your host. I'm here with the wonderful Roxanne, and this is our second podcast. We're back. So, the first one didn't send us away. We're here for a new one and very happy. Great experience. And so, we're ready to go for a very long time. How are you, Roxy?
Hey Max, I'm good. You hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
There was a weird stat that came over the air the other day when I was reading, well, it was over the internet, I should say. I had applied to or subscribed to a little news thing called Morning Brew, and they had a little statistic in there that, and I don't remember the percentage, but it was an incredible percentage that most podcasts don't have a second episode. So I was thinking, my God, we made it to the second one. Look at us.
Yes. We have already doubled
We've doubled
most
production.
podcasts.
My God, we need to
Yes.
put that on a resume. Ability to
Yeah.
double production.
We have got to the second. Yeah. So, um, what's new? So, I mean, we are in a new era, in a new world. The things are changing a lot in a very fast path. How to say? Very fast. And we have so many things happening right now. But well, here we are.
Lots happening in the world.
It's yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's what perspective do you take, and how do you relate to that? Are you going outside and getting scared, or are you staying inside, protected and and well and great? It's a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, the world is in a constant change. We think as generations grow up, there's always a focus of what is happening. And quickly, when those focuses of energetic chain are happening, they fade with time. So if you just look at maybe break it down in a measurement of decades, so we can label particular decades, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, with monumental points of changes, and we're here in the 20s and we've already had COVID, and now we have Roe versus Wade being reversed in the United States, and the division is happening. But if you look at things as a constant evolution of theme, um, uh, there's a bigger picture revealed, and the theme is not necessarily leading towards a positive nor negative uh, outcome. The theme is the evolution of the species as a collective. And it may look like it's going in a direction of hell in a handbasket. I've heard that so many times over the years, like the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Well, I'm 55 years old, and every decade, if you want to put it, I've heard that the world's never going to go to hell, and it's never going to go in a handbasket. For God's sakes, it would probably go in, I don't know, a pair of shoes, Jimmy Choo shoes. Say that 3 times
Yeah.
fast, and it would go with a strut, But it's not going to go in the idea of truly hell in a handbasket. The world is fine. Humanity is evolving as a collective. The respective perspectives are finites of conclusion, subjective to each singularity participating in their own little world. So, if you pay attention to Roe versus Wade, you might have an opinion about that, no matter what opposing side you lie on. But if you step out of the opposition polarity itself and look at above, you see it's a nation working itself out. It's still a young nation. It's 200 years old plus, and it's still got afterbirth on its ear. It may command things, but it's very volatile and very changeable, and it doesn't have itself yet. Um, when
True.
I lived in Germany for a time, my dad was in the military. I remember traveling distinctly from Germany to Italy to France for skiing purposes. And we went up to Brussels, Belgium one time, but that was for an athletic event in my high school. There, you can feel the culture. There's a there's a culture within that. That France knows itself. Italy knew itself. Um, and Germany. Oh my God! When you're in Germany, you know you're in Germany, not because of the
Oh yes.
language. The architecture is gorgeous, but that doesn't constitute the vibration, the relationship of your presence with the space-time location you're in on Earth called Germany. In the United States, you know you're in the United States, but you go from state to state to state to state. It's like changing outfits, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And you see, it's interesting because Switzerland has a history. Well, it's built it's 26 23 states, of which 3 have separated, so it's 26, 20 full and 6 half. But the idea of Switzerland is close to the idea of the United States, but Switzerland began her history in 1291, even before probably, but we relate to that 1291. It means that it's more than 700 years of history. So and I mean and the real Switzerland, as we know it now, has what we will say, right? It's 150 years, something like that. So it took to get there 600, 500, 600 years. So it is easy to say the United States are losing themselves. They're not the same. They're not. But it's simply that when you compare, is that there is a vibration that is different, but that difference comes with time. We had more time to get it together. So it's always easy to right to say all those things, but that counts in how we manifest it. So all of this stuff, legal stuff, and the way it's built between states and all that, Switzerland had something that we call the Sonderbund. It was our war, internal war in 1848, something like that. And so, who will expect something like that to happen in Switzerland? But it happened. And you see, after that, now it's working very well. But yeah, it's a different thing. And I have to say, when I come to the United States or when I connect to the United States, I feel that lack of history and also that vibrational worthiness that I feel it's lacking everywhere. Worthiness is lacking all over the world. It's not that there is more, but I'd say in the United States is more condensed in the way I feel it, and it's manifested in things like universal health care not being there, like things like that, and you can trace that to that unworthiness. But at the same moment, as you were saying, is that there is the country has to be built. We expect the same from the United States, the way it's built, as we expected from Germany, Switzerland, Italy. But history is not the same. So the relationship is not the same. The manifestation of the country is not the same.
of course not, because it was all set in a different idea. We were the America was founded on you know Puritans and deeply or steeply engaged in the idea of religion, which is just the way it was. And then religion is the dominant, and then the United States is also open, and it becomes a mixing pot for culture, and then that has to work itself out. It has to grow. It has to blossom. It needs nurturing and care and concern and an attitude of acceptance and collective uh, for it to grow, and it is. It's just going to take, some more time. So the events of the world are not finite, they're just experiential, and my teachings, I always offer the idea, don't worry about the external. The external takes care of itself when you are internally manifesting your own truth and abiding the best truth of yourself to evolve yourself and discover yourself in the journey of humanity and the relationship of
I
the
have a
incarnation.
question for you.
You know what?
I have a question on that. Because at this point that, well, they have reversed it, so it's gone. But
What's the
I'm
question so I know
feeling,
what you're talking about? They have
I'm
reversed it. I
feeling
don't know what that is.
the weight,
Oh,
row
okay.
versus weight, right?
Yeah.
They have
Okay.
let it go. But now that it's gone, I'm wondering, wasn't that keeping it in a stall position so that now actually it's opening doors? It's change, so it's inviting more change.
Of course. There's nothing permanent in creation. Think about the empires. Put yourself in an idea of the Roman Empire, right smack in the middle of the Roman Empire. There was no thought of the Roman Empire not existing. There was no relationship to that. But the Roman Empire, like all empires, will change. They'll crumble in the ideas of the eyes of history, and they'll assign it some reasonality of causation of that crumbling, but that's irrelevant. What it is the change of humanity knowing itself, which is
Because,
exceptional.
sorry,
So, so,
yeah,
so, to answer your question, yes, it was stalled, and there was a point of it was a pressure point, and now there's freedom. Of course, there's the downside, like okay, they're going to prosecute people for having, and if they move to another state and they live in this state and they have it in the, and all of a sudden anti-am, it's a twister, and that's just diarrhea. That's just polarized diarrhea to grab someone's distraction and set fear upon them so they can waddle themselves in persecution and let them have that. Those are ideas. But the intelligence of each person knows in that world of their own universe, they have their choices, and those choices will be birthed in that regard. It'll be represented, attracted, and then birthed, and how each singularity as a collective of humanity evolves itself only evolves the human self. So this change was part of that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened.
yeah,
So I think it's phenomenal that idea. I'm not thinking it's phenomenal in the idea of I'm taking sides because I'm pro-choice or pro-life. I'm not neither one
yes,
of those. I don't give a fuck what you
yeah,
guys do. Go on
exactly.
your own
No,
bad self.
absolutely.
Exactly. But the domination of people being led because of their unworthiness allows these laws and fears to be uh, enacted, which is the evolution of the species itself. It's not right or
Yeah,
wrong. It's where we're at right now.
yeah. It gives me the image of something that everyone was hiding behind, so that they didn't have to take any decision, and so that it was just standing there, and and 50 years, a decision from the Supreme Court. Then, well, great, but there are other ways, there are other things that can be done with not just
But at that
what
time, no
is
one knew.
abortion.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing about looking at history. Of course, there were other things, but in that now, there were no other things. That was the
Yeah,
choice of that
exactly.
now. Every now is the best self of every one participating in every co created reality. The ability of the memory and the ability of polarity allows regrets and judgments, which is an experience of the human collective in and of itself. So, yeah, of
Yes,
course there's change, but the change doesn't come until the vibration is met.
exactly. Yeah. And in that, for me, what I'm seeing is that I realize now all, well, the unworthiness, all the lack, all the stuff that, and experiences, human experiences, that are going to happen, to be had. But then, as you said, it's a choice. Everyone now has a choice in regards of what is there. So to make those choices
Yes.
and to see what direction. And I bet that uh, people that are worthy and that express that worthiness will have absolutely no challenge or little challenge from this. And that's the discovery of these kind of things, why someone is exposed to certain things and someone else is not exposed to that. Well, look at your expression of the self, of your worthiness. Are you worthy? Well, no. Well, then you are attracting something else. Hardships, yes, is a choice. It's not that you're punished, is that you're not yet aware of your worthiness. I have a client, a Reiki client, and I'm working with her, and I know that I'm getting through, and then she scaled it back because her position for herself is that she's not worthy. She grew up in an environment where she was treated like shit, and then she married, and it was not really better. So she doesn't have any worthiness in herself, in regard of herself. So any work that I'm doing with her, it's getting through very. It's difficult, but it's difficult because her knowing of the self is not worthy, so she cannot accept it in that way.
Yes, her identity of suffering is greater than her identity of worthiness.
Yes,
And
yeah, hardship.
of course, in
She,
the mind, of course, that's controverted. In the reactive mind of measurement, that's easy. People go, "Oh, I think I deserve this. I didn't deserve that." Well, no, your vibration speaks different. Your relationship to reality speaks different. You don't learn the language of the now, then you're only going to be using the language of time, and that's your memory and the way you relate to each vibration in the now through your memory is the vibration of continuance. So you just get more aware of your own self. So this Reiki client of yours, Reiki isn't was an avenue for the connection. It's not her salvation. It's your
mm,
words and your actions of expressing your worthiness that allows her to see in perception that whether that Reiki session turns into a conversation of wills, which is very much possible, then maybe she can get it on a teacher student approach instead of the practitioner and healer approach, which you're giving with the Reiki. So that's all to be said, and that's up to her to choose.
yeah,
And that opportunity will be made known if it's vibrationally tactful in that attraction. So
yes, because at the same moment, the thing that I told her is that she made the choice to come to me, and so she opened doors, and then it's a question of choices. And that's why when I relate and with the United States and the situation, I feel right. I feel the lack. I feel the unworthiness that is there. But that being said and that being felt, that is not the end of it, and it's not a something that is everywhere and expressed by everyone. Is the overall feeling, but then there is evolution. So that is a situation, a feeling in a moment, but that doesn't tell the whole story or doesn't give, well, it's going to evolve, it's going to change.
right,
Change is there, it's happening.
yeah, and the whole story is never looked at from a finite point of view, or a defining point of view, or a conclusionary point of view. That's just the occurrence of the now, which is ever changing. So life tells you life is evolving uh, without energy or effort. And the energy in and of itself is the nature of evolution. The nature of evolution is evolutionary. It's already built in. Every action in an interaction is always an expansion of self. Every leaf that blows in the wind is change. Every cat that meows is change. Every cloud in the sky that dissipates and bursts itself in a different form is change. Evolution is always happening. It's each co-created moment through the infinite number of lives looking at the moment, the stillness of a moment, and then piece out all the animals and insects and bugs and humans involved in that moment. And every single round bubble of co-creation is an infinite number of singular universes or their own bubbles evolving through the interpretation of that co-created moment. It's just phenomenal. So it's happening without fault. It's happening because that's what we are, constant knowing ourselves in evolution. And what the availability tells the human incarnation is the perception of self. We're gods that forgot we're gods, creators, gods, whatever you want to put in there, that literally forgot that we're connected, that we're eternal, that we're one and all, that we've been this for infinite, and we incarnate in an infinite amount of physical and non-physical points of view for experience. We just chose human, and the human experience is not to know you're a creator, and then you forget. And now that leaves a point of view, a conditioned point of view in the unconditional reality that evolves. And then when the awareness of the human uh, wakes up to that perception, then, oh my God, I am a creator and I'm awake, and this is not what's the truth. It is a truth, but it's not my truth. It's the relationship to reality, which all realities are true, they're all real. So that realness is now subjectively chosen by the awakener. And then they interact and watch the species grow up, while others in the species fast asleep are having the uh, polarized experience, which is still them, that singularity, growing up because it's still evolving through
Yes.
polarity. But just the idea of waking up and having subjective choice, the choice of the I am, is beyond measure, beyond measure. It's the greatness of us.
Yeah. And and I have to say that I am experiencing every day now the vibration truth, my vibration truth, my uh, attraction, how all of that is is happening and happening with me, observing it, seeing it, and understanding it, and at this point, it's really that it becomes so evident, so strong. So uh, even when sometimes I may be doubting or wondering, and then there is only just to sit down and look around me, and there it is. And there and I realized, well, I don't need to go run a marathon or do any achievement or try to have any proof or anything. I just have to sit down and it's there.
Yes.
and it's that becoming aware that once once you start and once you give that yourself that opportunity and that awareness, well, then it's there, it doesn't go away, and it's working. And right, when we say, well, reality happens, can't stop reality, it's there, it's happening, and whether you try it or not, it's happening the same. And then you go into that and you start wondering, well, yeah, great. So how does it work? So let me try this. Let me do that. Oh, let me manage this. Let me manage that. And then you realize, oh, it's wait, oh, it doesn't work really. Oh, then you get to the point where you say, well, then let me do nothing. And then you see, oh, things still happen. And when you say we become vibrational tacticians, and one say, well, that's a big word. It's a big thing. What can that be? And then well, you learn it, you realize it, you see it, because it's there. It becomes obvious. It becomes so crystal clear. Yes, I'm a vibrational tactician. I'm paying attention, even sometimes little attention, and sometimes more, but it doesn't matter. Is that, yeah, now I understand that vibrational tactician is that a little things happen here, a big things happen there, but I'm realizing myself, I'm learning myself, and I'm understanding myself, because all of that is vibration. And as soon as I accept that, because it's a lot in the acceptance, that when I hear a name, when I hear a word, when whatever, that is real. And even if my ego tries to trick me into refusing that, there is even a simpler way, which is just accept it. And once you start accept and get into that, you realize, yeah, yes, look at that. Now I see that. It's real.
It's effortless
Yeah.
because it's law of attraction. People still pursue life when law of attraction takes care of it. Oh, you have to get up and take action. You might have to get up and walk across the room. You have to drive to the place you need to go. It's not that you're going to stop physical action. You're not going to be sitting on your ass eating bonbons. You're going to take action, but the attraction manifests as the change. The opportunity of change. Change is not defined. The human ego hunts for the defined change, and it hunts it through measurement. It sees one thing as negative and the other as positive, so it chooses the positive, because the negative needs to be avoided. But what they're actually both opportunities of self-awareness. They're not opportunities of successful or failed outcomes. That's the human. That's the human journeying through polarity, measuring themselves in a relationship of some bullshit standard that someone made up. And they have to hold themselves accountable to that standard, because that person that made it up in their life, and that goes from moment to moment to moment, whoever their external authority is, makes it up, and they try to adhere to meet that standard. But really, when you let go, you get opportunities of change that are relatable to the self vibrationally. And that's where you have to start to learn the language of the now. Learn to trust your own intuition. Learn to trust the thoughts coming into your mind and looking at those thoughts and understanding those thoughts are you, whether they are defined in the idea of polarity or whether they are exceptional epiphanies. They're both still you. One's just being filtered over the other one. And that leaves work for you to transcend those relationship beliefs that give you a polarized point of view and, as of course, a polarized emotional reaction to that point of view, that occurrence. So every person is always attracting evolution, revealing themselves, discovering themselves, self discovery. They're realizing this moment is here, not for me to learn a lesson. That person I don't need to give gratitude to because they taught me a lesson. I don't need to put myself less than and put that person more than. That is a minion in my reality that says, here's what you're representing as an attraction undefined or an unconditional, or even you can say a neutral, not neutral as an empty and you fill it with your own diarrhea, The neutral is this is full of life. You choose how to relate to it. It's chocolate. You can't change it to vanilla. You have to taste the chocolate and see if the chocolate is preference for you. So that's what reality attracts, and it attracts change because we're an evolutionary species. Why would we come here uh, to in the first place? Well, there's no why we came here. We just did come here. We were attracted, and we are absolutely insatiable about experience because that's what we are, you know. And attraction attracted an opportunity to become a human incarnation. We choose that incarnation, we forget everything, and in that world of conditionings that we're birthed into, we relative ourselves to the conditioning and have a human experience. Phenomenal. But that doesn't exclude the idea of law of attraction. That doesn't exclude any of the five laws of creation. What that includes is what we've always been in the unconditional opportunity of change, opportunity of evolution. But until the singularity wakes up, then they're just having a human life, which is, of course, immeasurable. It still lies within the field of unconditional. And now that you are aware of that, that's when you can let go. Let go of that control, let go of that management, let go of that effort, and allow attraction to show up the opportunity of the next best self in the moment. And that's difficult for humans because we value everything in time. What's going to be? I have a career. I need to have the rent paid, safety and security are always in the back of my mind or present within myself. And so you're always relating your reality to the managerial aspects of maintaining your common good self, your comfortable self, not spilling off into failure and tumbling down the rabbit hole of homelessness and poverty and fighting for yourself and moving yourself and maybe even getting successful in the drive and becoming rich and famous or whatever that is. All of those are relationships of polarity, of taking the self that is empty and filling it with a constant image or an avatar of an outcome self that makes the internal self, which is the empty self that lives on emotional, dines on emotional feeding, drives it to fulfill that emptiness. And then when it's not met, depression sets in, anger sets in, frustration, then motivation, then you get compassion and empathy from people because you attract that. You get a model to be a victim and take on a banner of victimization, and you put a label on it that the medical community says is okay to use, and you can work and have that life of human. But when you awaken and you want to know the mastery of yourself, then you have a choice, and that choice is the awareness of self present in the chaotic world that's absolutely never been chaotic, but has been exemplary in its manifestations of change, of opportunity, and of course the experience of the singularity that had the balls to come down here and say, I'm going to be a human. And all those masters that are running around, that are on Wall Street, and presidents and tyrants and murderers and rapists and doctors and lawyers and teachers and everything that we define humans as and colors and religions are masters of evolution. And we've chosen to come here to raise a species out of darkness, not negative darkness, but darkness of itself, not knowing its own light. And that's represented in action. You represent that. We represent to our children how to walk. We didn't teach them how to walk, they just start. We represent that. And so when you work with that Reiki person, you represent authenticity, you represent worthiness, you follow your internal intuition, and you represent that change, that light within her. Whether they choose it or not is not your job, but yourself is already being enacted as the change for those who represent or who attract to into your life. So it's happening. It's effortless.
Side note, side note. As you mentioned that, I haven't forgotten. I promised you some chocolate. It's coming.
Some
Um,
chocolate from Switzerland.
yes.
Okay,
Dark chocolate, obviously.
bring me some.
Yeah. it, what I perceive is that in all of these stories that are happening, is that I think that most of the outcry when there are decisions like that of Roe and versus whatever, is that there is a lack of self empowerment, self awareness of the inside instead of right giving it all to the outside. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying that that doesn't have consequences for some people. Some beings will have consequences, but because they don't know anything else, right? That's what they know, so that's what they're going to express. But is uh, is the fact that this form of authority, which is perceived as external, takes over everything. And so when that happens, it seems that the entire world is crumbling because the external authority has done something. And I'm saying, well, yeah, good, but remember that your power is your power, right? That your internal is your internal. You don't really give away that. It's an illusion, and that's the story we are telling. However, you still are you. You still have yourself. And for me, that is what makes a difference. That is what now I yes, I can empathize, if I can say, with what that has as a consequence, but at the same moment I empower myself in saying, well, that will be dealt with at the right moment. I don't need to actively right now in my now do anything about that, because, well, first of all, I'm here and now, and so I don't see the relevance of that in my now. But more so is that I realize how easily we we get lost into that impression that there is something that is still above us, still in control, or any things like that. And that's one of the things that I'm saying. I'm calling no bullshit. No, there's no one above me. There is no authority. There is nothing of that. And I realized that the moment I get into that vibration, then my relationships with anyone or any situation, well, changes completely. If I go into a interview, a job interview of anything of that, and I'm there, and I experienced that lately, and I'm there from my own power, empowerment, well, then the experience is completely different. The experience is me being there as the creator being that I am, and I'm attracting something completely different where I'm not trembling, I'm not being scared, I'm not expecting someone to take over for me or whatever it may be. But that's the discovery of the self is and the affirming the self and accepting that aspect, that I am determining those things from the inside and not from the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
the less than is just a part of human waking up. There's that old story about God being outside, but what happened before we realized there were gods? There was a time on Earth when there was no God, right? There was no there
Mm-hmm.
was no God. And then gods were represented in whatever way they were represented. Maybe they were represented as what people and theorists idealize today was in ancient times were aliens, and uh, the Hathor civilization uh, as a god is represented on earth in the Egypt sculptures as gods, and they were big 8 or 12, 16, 14, 15-foot gods that had big ears, like cow ears on them, and they were these tall, enormous beings. And that was representation for a collective that forgot everything. And so at that time, we needed to know there was a God because we don't even know that we're gods because we don't even know there's gods. So, in polarized points of view, you put something outside of yourself that's above you, and now you can represent what's needed internally about the self, a God. And we got that representation. And you can see how God is represented today through infinite number of symbols and infinite number of evolutions of different religions around the globe. And we've discovered so many religions that it just boggles the mind if you really look at it. There is no true religion that's the one over another. There's all relationship to how each individual is perceiving God that lies within. The kingdom of heaven lies within. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, because I'm God and I'm going to take care of me. But that's the evolution of the species. So without that occurrence of recognizing the possibility of God, we can't even know that we're gods, which is the time that we're in now. So people are still unworthy. God is above us. God makes awfully strange choices. They'll bless a football player making a touchdown, but they'll drop a roof on a church roof on 63 parishioners that are all around the age of 70 to 80 on a Sunday afternoon. So God makes really crazy choices, but those aren't choices of God. Those are relationships for each singularity to explore themselves. See, the conditioning of humanity is mortal. Humanity is just a suit that you wear. The immortal is the internal being, the I am, that's experienced itself through this evolution. So now me and you, Max, and other awakeners around the world are taking the God that was outside and moved to the God that was in the hearts of men. That's Jesus and JC and the boys and all that story, which is phenomenal, and was represented with Horus in the Egyptian times. It was represented in the religions that we have today, and we all have something internal that connects us to the God now. And now we're representing, Max, God. We are the creators. We're the one, we're the all. We're all creation from a singular point of awareness. That awareness is of a will of truth of itself. And that expression allows creation to know itself eternally. The big picture is we always get to be I am forever, ever knowing ourselves in the infinite number of stories we're going to occur, and we're going to do that forever, which itself is
So
just phenomenal. So
yeah,
we, Max,
I
real
was
quick, are
yeah.
representing
Sorry.
the internal worth. That's what we
Yes,
represent,
exactly.
not to put the external value of worthiness above us and leave us lower. And religion is easy to do that. Society reinforces that every day. It reinforces that through social and monetary standards, with the ideas of race is depicting the better race over another race because of the evolution of that individual race and according to this culture it grows up in, blah blah blah. All of that is represented as less than and more than outside of yourself. We awakeners, the light bearers, the uh, ones that choose to be enlightened in their own kingdom, represent the internal creator. And that allows others to enlighten their own kingdom. So that's right the next part, and we're right smack in the beginnings of the evolution. I mean, it hasn't been very long, and we chose to set the foundation in place in this particular lifetime of this incarnation of this life that we're living right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, so I can imagine that some will want to manifest now that with the situation that has been created. So I advise anyone that wants to manifest to do it. It's your choice, but do it differently, because very often when I see people manifesting, I just see lack. So if you go the way it's done generally, you'll just go in there vibrating your lack. When you manifest from your power, from your empowerment. You are not there demanding, you are there expressing your godhood. You are God. You are not expressing the one that is a victim, or, well, that's all you're doing there, so that will be the vibration. That's the vibration, so that's the outcome. Vibrate your godhood, your power, your empowerment. That's gonna be the
Right,
change in your manifesting.
but people have to, first off, you got to get to know yourself. See, that's the one of the biggest concepts is what is empowerment itself without knowing yourself as vibrationally truth. You're emanating always a constant vibration. The human is born in lack, so you're constantly lacking the self. You have your positive parts of you that attract positive outcomes, but they're not positive outcomes. They're interpreted as positive outcomes. And they might be positive, but they're always subjective positive to the singularity. It's never on a measurable standard that sits anywhere as people calling positive as this and negative as this. You know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Always remember it's
Mm-hmm.
subjective. But get to know yourself before you still go off manifesting. If you're using your mind to manifest through emotional content of an outcome that's going to make me better, you're still lacking because you're looking at yourself in the
Yes.
presence of the self as less than because you need something better than, which is vibrating I'm less than. So you're going to attract a constant universe of I am still less than.
Yeah.
So what you have to do, you can manifest, but I don't value manifestation for any reason because my manifested reality is occurring every time I get up, every time I blink my eyes and they open again. There's a reality there. I'm always manifesting a physical reality. I don't need to manifest the particulars because the particulars don't define me. I manifest my worthiness now, and reality attraction takes care of the rest. But you can manifest with intention and outcome and purpose. And that is a tact that's going to be confined within the vibrational relationship that you are to yourself as a being. How are you to yourself? Not up here in your mind. I'm awesome. I'm affirmed 1,000 times because I've done this and I've done the rituals. But really, what is the truth of myself? Do I know myself brutally and honestly? That's where vibration births. It doesn't birth in manifestation of purpose and outcome. That's vibration of lack that works itself within the field of polarity. So there will be successes and there will be failures. So get to know yourself before you go off half cocked
Yes.
trying to figure out how to manifest for an outcome of temporary satisfaction that has to be regurgitated in its cyclic form so you can get through life always trying to be good and happy when happiness is a natural state. You just have to take down the diarrhea that we've built up around us that tell us that we stink, and we don't. We're beautiful, but that has to be realized, not affirmed through action. It has to be subjectively understood through choice. Big difference.
Wonderful. Yeah. I love that when you say that. Perfect. And I think that now, beside that, and I loved what you told me before about how things are going with the school,
The school,
because
yeah,
I I think that that is a perfect
self-discovery
example.
school.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of manifestation, vibration, self-awareness, listening to the self, listening to reality,
Yes,
being aware, and accepting it, and not seeing in a no, or what could be seen as a rejection as the end of it, but
and that's tough for people because people have. Okay, let's be subjective. Person has a goal and they want to manifest something, and that's not right or wrong. That's choice. Okay, so
mhm,
through a series of relatable realities in my memory, I can put together a timeline of occurrences. So, I started writing down all the stuff I've done for the last 10 years. I thought about creating a school. It manifested in the idea in my mind, firstly. And that idea was the breakdown of stages of the school, or pods, or modules, if you would. So one was the School of Recognition, School of Transcendence is the second, School of Vibrational Mastery is the third, and School of Persona Development is the fourth. And then I just sat down and start writing the curriculum because it felt good. I didn't do it right away for a purpose or a reason. Oh, I have a school in my mind. I got to get it down. Let me go forward with it. Now you can do that, but at that moment, it wasn't that choice for me. It was like, let me pull up a sheet of paper and just start writing down ideas. So I had a thing I called discovery. So I'm starting just writing all of my discovery. It's like done in a small font of like five, or not five, or like 10 size, whatever that is, of my font size. And it's 2 pages long without any punctuation or paragraphs. They're just one idea after the other. And that was a start for me to develop a skill set. See, that was an unknown attraction being manifested as a potential through choice because it felt good just to write all my stuff down. And that opened up a reality of, now let's put this together as a conducive way of understanding self discovery. What I've discovered as understanding my relationship to reality, where I fit is a singular point of one and all, how my free will is not really free and it's not really bound. It's built in as the will, and there is no freedom about it, and there's no uh, enslavement or restriction or confinement of it. All of those things were polarized, which told me more about myself because I was looking at things defined. So those ideas, those willingness, those things started to reveal themselves, and I start writing them down as categories of where those occurred in my life. When I discovered the laws of attraction, or the laws of the universe, where I discovered my first idea of the ego and the identity. And I put those in school form, in paragraph form of where they fit in a timeline of continuation. So you can have what we would call a journey in time through the different parts of my evolution, and broke it down as parts of it, right? So I put everything together in a category and called that School of Recognition. Everything about realization, you have to put that so much into place, so well into place, so hard into place that you can't doubt your own recognition of vibration, of your truth, of reality. So that happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this school happened. And then all of a sudden, someone came into my life, which is a friend, and she goes, you know, why don't you just teach this? Why don't you teach this in a school? And I was like, man, I've been doing Zoom for 6, 7 years now. Slide classes, master classes, Wednesday Zoom classes, my ego classes, one-on-one groups. I said, I don't want to do classes again online. I don't want to do it. I'd like to do it in a physical reality. But that wasn't there. But came to me, Max. It came through a mutual friend of mine, Omer, came to me and said, "Why don't you do a workshop? Put this together as a workshop and let's do that." And the workshop started. All of that was attraction. I couldn't think of that with intention and purpose. I would have been down that reality that way instead of this reality this way if I would have vibrated a different approach in the moment of choice. The moment of choice was lacking myself with purpose and intention to have an outcome, to be successful and be an image for people so they can have hope in their lives and be this great teacher and blah, blah, blah. That's not wrong. That's the vibration of not my preference. Let me see what can manifest. So I started in the moment with the idea that was in my head that was awesome. And I just started writing. Now, here we are 4 months later or something like that. 4 months later, we have the place of the school picked out here in San Antonio. We're putting on the website up on by the 1st. I think it's going up. It's going up there on my website. People can start signing up for the school. It's all in the place and it's happening. Now, what else manifested through that attraction? Well, I wrote a curriculum. I wrote a workbook that matched. I got my writing skills back in order. I was never very attentive in school. I was never one who enjoyed it and did not enjoy college and my futile attempts at college. But there was something about working and writing that turned me on. And then through another co-creative moment, my focus left this world where I was going in this direction. And then all of a sudden, there's an idea in front of me that sits. Hey, why don't you take that story that you had in your head and write it down? So now I'm writing this novel, and I'm right now I'm 33 pages into this novel, and it is absolutely exquisite to discover your abilities of intelligence that lies within the kingdom without external education, without external standards, without external how to's. You birth creation. This is what Steve Jobs did. This is what Ben Franklin did. These are the greats around the world, the Teslas and the Einsteins, the ones that we hear about that don't look to be successful. Now, I'm not putting anything on people that being successful. We have some of the greatest people, Edisons and the Kennedys and the people that changed the world. I get that, right? They were purpose, and that's not wrong. Don't put yourself in a polarized position upon my words. Just understand this is choices, a direction. Einstein couldn't help himself. Tesla couldn't help himself. Steve Jobs couldn't help himself. He can't get out of his own way enough to play in his world of passion. These people generated that internal intelligence and brought it out to the palette of humanity. And it comes in forms of books. It comes in forms of husbands being excellent fathers and wives being outstanding mothers and practitioners of medicine around the world and secretaries that run an office to the degree of a well-oiled precision machine. These are the selves. It's not the defining outside confinement of labeling that is acquired in successes. That's manifestation of lack. That's defining in the finite of causality and reasonable. What it is this intelligence. So here I am writing a story about this absolute phenomenal reality, and it's birthing, and the way I'm writing it is a self-discovery. My words flowing out, like when I channel, I can't help but to be this channel, and I have no thought. And it's not that I'm channeling the information, I'm creating it, but it's in that same respect of flow. It's absolutely phenomenal. So I get up at 6 o'clock, get my coffee, and I'm sitting down on my computer until it's time to eat. And I'm engaged in a reality of non-purpose, of no outcome, of no manifestation of something in the future. It's so I can't help it. The manifestations come in the journey. The things that we can tangibilize come with the journey. There was no Apple computer, and then there's an Apple computer. There was no smartphone, but there was a phone. We manifested through the journey. The journey occurs in the now. The now creates tomorrow. The now attracts the next world. Pay attention. Live in the now of the absolute self that is beyond measure, that's beyond contestation, that's beyond negotiation, that's beyond hesitation, that truly chooses its worth in the moment to see its own light and its own value in creation. In the absence of that singularity, all of creation collapses, because without one, there is no all. And everybody counts. Phenomenal.
Yeah, and the fact is that when you make that choice, when you are doing that, you'll notice the difference. You'll see that your reality changes, that where you were behaving in a certain way with a certain outcome that was quite, well, always the same outcome, then suddenly you choose differently, you vibrate differently, you decide to empower yourself or to be yourself, to express yourself in a certain way, and then you have a different reality, different
Of
outcome,
course.
situations that were not possible
Yes.
before, but you choose to be that self that allows the change.
Yes. That
Then,
allows the
then you
change to
cannot
make itself
get the
by
same.
making that worthy choice of the self. It's like when there's a victim that goes back to the abuser over and over again because they have no
Mhm.
value that their existence will be or can be anything other than being a victim. So they allow themselves to be the abuser. When they make the choice to no longer be the victim, the abusers leave, and the victim
Yes.
becomes worthy. And it may take 3 or 4 attempts, and it may take, in some manners, restraining order and laws to enact that in a safe place, and finally birthing the life that they can have. And vibrational take care of itself. You have to trust it. You have to trust the journey of the now.
I'm always convinced, and I'm sure of that, that very often what is the uh, uh, the perception of inferiority of women. And that was funny because this week I heard someone saying that matriarchy was never applied anywhere on earth, and I was laughing about that. But it's when you perceive that, and that's for every minority, is that a minority tends to express unworthiness, to be less than, because there is a majority, and the majority is the one that detains the truth because they are the majority. They are the better ones because, well, they are the majority. Obviously they must be in some place where things are right. It's more natural to be as the
There's
majority because that's the leading thing,
great
right?
comfort in numbers, isn't there?
And yeah, exactly. Until the member of the majority finds itself in a place where they are the minority, and they feel bad, but that's something else. But nevertheless, I always feel that when you have that perception, and that you enter in that perception, so you are expressing a inferiority coming from perceiving yourself a minority, is that, well, then you keep yourself in that until you choose differently, until you realize that that doesn't make you less than.
And but always remember, you can't make that choice with your motivational mind. You have to look and
Yeah, no,
accept
absolutely.
yourself
Yeah,
first, what you are. You have to know the
as
self
you are.
of less than in order to be more than. You've got
Yeah,
to get to know
yeah,
the
absolutely.
incarnation of separation. You can't just use some motivational speaker of either. That works, but it doesn't become
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
self. You want to become the unconditional I am. You don't want to maintain your imagery through successes and efforts. But that too is a choice. And we're almost out of time. I don't
Yeah,
know when
absolutely.
it's supposed to end.
yeah, well,
I don't know if it.
we will end
Okay,
now.
I don't know
So,
if it has a time.
well, you can go.
Good.
Yeah, you can go through affirmation every morning and trying to say, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. Well, yeah. Have you accepted yourself? Yeah, that's true. Have you accepted yourself
As
exactly
is,
as you are, as
as is.
is?
You are enough as is. Anything that
Yeah.
is measurable is a interpretation of polarity within your own kingdom. That's up to you. That's the
And
awareness you
once you
have to
do
live.
that, yes. And once you do that and you allow yourself to choose that, then you can get into that mindset where, well, I'm maybe minority, but I'm not less than. And once you reach that, then you cannot be in any way anymore victimized by the majority. You cannot take a woman that is feeling equal to a man and make her feel inferior. She will not take that. She will not accept that because she knows
Well,
she's equal,
it's not
right?
even that she would accept it, she can't even see it, let alone
Yeah,
attract those things
exactly.
into reality any longer. Because that's how
It's
vibrationally
not
different
her.
you'll be out of that value of that reality of potential. Anyways,
And so
cool.
that right. All right, so let's get out of here. So thank you. And before we leave, let me just remind that our theme song, our music that we have has been offered by the composer Mark Yates, and that is extract from Responsoria by Mark Rates. And by the way, Mark Rates is on musicpatreon.com if anyone wants to go check that. So right, Roxy, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next week,
Pleasure. Next week.
same bat time,
Yes.
same bat channel. Show,
And we'll get a third one, which
showing our
makes it
age.
even three
That's
times.
right. All right, hon.
We'll triple. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much,
See you next
and
week.
see you next week.